If you still think that a nursing home is a paradise for the elderly, then perhaps you have never lived in one. I used to believe that too. I thought it was a place where my parents, or even myself, would be well cared for, spending our later years happily among peers, with a dedicated medical team and peaceful afternoons by the window. But after a few months of living in a nursing home, I realized I had sacrificed too much. I lost my home. I lost my familiar routines, my joy for life, and worse, I lost myself. If you are considering moving into a nursing home or placing your parents in one, I hope you take a few moments to hear the 6 biggest regrets of my life. Regrets that, had someone warned me about them earlier, perhaps my life would have taken a different path. Regret 1, losing freedom. What is freedom? It is the ability to decide when to wake up, what to eat, and how to spend your day. It is being able to brew a cup of tea in the morning or take a walk outside when you feel suffocated. But in a nursing home, everything follows a schedule. At 7 a.m., I was woken up, even when my eyes were still heavy from lack of sleep. At 7:30, breakfast was served, whether I was hungry or not. At 9, there was a group activity, listening to music, clapping along to the rhythm. Lunch at 12, no choice of dishes. Rest time at 3 p.m., dinner at 6, and after 8 p.m., anyone still outside their room would be reminded to return. I couldn't leave on my own. The doors were locked. If I wanted to go somewhere, I needed an escort. One time I just wanted to take a short walk to the front gate to look at the familiar road where my husband and I used to ride our bikes every evening. A staff member asked, "Do you need to go outside? Let me call someone to accompany you." I froze. I, someone who had lived nearly a lifetime, now needed permission just to take a walk? I had lost my freedom. And when you lose your freedom, you slowly start to lose your will to live. Regret 2nd, being forgotten. When I first entered the nursing home, my daughter promised to visit every week. The first week, she really did come, bringing pastries, fruit, and asking me all sorts of questions. I was so happy I cried, thinking, even though I'm not at home, I'm not alone. But then, the 2nd week, it was just a hurried phone call. The 3rd week, she sent a message. "Sorry, Dad, I'm busy." The 4th week, no one came. I started marking my days by the number of times my children called. Some weeks, no one texted at all. Sometimes there was only a short message. "Dad, how are you?" And then silence. I don't blame anyone. Life outside moves too fast. The young have jobs to do, children to raise. But the feeling of being left behind, it hurts in a way that's hard to describe. That Christmas, I watched the fireworks from afar through the window. In my hands was a small holiday gift from the staff. No one came to take me home. There was no scent of candles, no warm family dinner. And I realized once you're no longer part of your children's daily lives, you slowly start to disappear from their hearts as well. Regret 3, losing the meaning of life. When I was still at home, I kept a familiar routine. Every morning, I woke up early to brew tea, watered the small potted plants in the yard, wiped down the wooden floor in the living room, and sometimes fixed a squeaky door hinge or replaced a flickering kitchen light bulb. Nothing grand, but these small tasks made me feel alive, made me feel like the man of the house. I once patched up my grandson's school uniform, cooked my son's favorite grilled pork dish. One day, my grandson brought his bicycle over with a flat tire. I knelt down, pumped it up, adjusted the brakes. He looked at me with a big smile. "Grandpa, you're amazing," I chuckled. The feeling of being relied on, of having someone trust you, that sometimes is what keeps a man feeling like he still matters. But ever since I entered the nursing home, everything stopped. Meals were brought to me. My room was cleaned by someone else. No one asked me to fix anything. No one sought my opinion on anything. I slowly began to feel like I was just existing. Days passed with nothing to do, no one who needed me, no one who cared to hear my thoughts. I remember Mr. Harold, a friend from my floor, once a high school literature teacher. When he first arrived, he brought a few books, an old radio, and some poems his students had gifted him years ago. In the beginning, he played soft music and we talked about our favorite books. But after just a few weeks, the books remained untouched on his desk and the radio sat in silence. I often saw him sitting by the window, staring out for hours without saying a word. One day I asked, "Aren't you reading anything today?" He gave a faint smile, his gaze distant. "I'd love to, but there's no one left to share it with." A man who once had hundreds of students hanging on his every word, now sat alone watching time pass. And I realized I was no different. I had once been the backbone of my family, consulted on every decision, big or small. But now I was someone whose name was not even called the entire day. Not because I didn't want to do anything, but because no one needed me to do anything. And that made me question my very existence. People say old age is a time to rest. But resting doesn't mean being pushed aside from life. We all still need a reason to wake up each morning, still need to feel like we are contributing, even in the smallest way. But in a nursing home, that feeling slowly fades. And one day I found myself wondering, I'm still breathing, but am I truly living? Regret 4, rapid health decline. Before coming here, I was still quite agile for my age. I couldn't climb mountains like I did in my 40s, but I could still go to the market, cook, clean the house, even change a light bulb and water the plants in the cool afternoon breeze. Every morning I had a habit of taking a walk around the neighborhood, just 10 or 15 minutes, but it made me sweat lightly, kept my limbs flexible, and my mind sharp. I used to take pride in the fact that while many of my peers walked with canes, I was still steady on my feet. But just a few months after moving into the nursing home, I found myself growing weaker without even realizing it. I no longer needed to walk to the market. Food was provided. I didn't have to cook. Meals were delivered to my room. If I needed to turn on the heater or find a scarf, I just pressed a button and someone would come to assist me. At first, I found it convenient. No need to do anything, just sit back and enjoy. But I didn't realize that this so-called convenience was silently stripping away my health, little by little. My legs started to weaken, my steps became unsteady. Every time I got up from bed, my knees ached, my back stiffened. At first I tried. I walked around the hallway, dressed myself, but gradually my body started to resist. It no longer obeyed me. I started using a cane, then a wheelchair. Even going to the bathroom, something I had done effortlessly for 70 years, became a struggle. I remember one time I was sitting when I suddenly heard a faint crack from my knee. I froze, feeling my heart tighten. I looked down at my legs that had once carried me everywhere, now curled up, fragile. Not because I had aged too quickly, but because I had stopped moving. One day during a routine checkup, the doctor gently told me, "You know, for elderly people, if you stop moving, your health declines 3 times faster than a younger person." I forced a weak smile. I knew it was true. I was living proof. I looked around the nursing home. There was old Mr. Smith. When he first arrived, he still rode his bicycle in the courtyard every evening. Now he lay bedridden. The only thing he could move was his fingers. There was another man who used to do morning exercises. Now he sat silently in his wheelchair, his trembling hands struggling to hold a spoonful of porridge. I realized a bitter truth. The more we were well taken care of, the more we forgot how to take care of ourselves. Everything was too convenient, and that very convenience took away my will to keep trying. If I could go back, I would tell myself to keep walking, keep folding my own blankets, keep dressing myself, keep doing the little things every day. Because those seemingly small actions were what kept me healthy and independent for longer. In a nursing home, they care about what you eat, what you drink, and whether you take your medication on time. But no one reminds you that if you stop moving, you will lose the most precious thing of all, the ability to stand on your own 2 feet. Regret 5, loss of privacy. Back when I was at home, I had a room of my own. It wasn't big, but it was my most cherished space. I could close the door when I felt tired, play music when I was happy, or lie still for hours just listening to the birds outside my window. I could take a shower whenever I wanted. I liked wearing my old blue shirt, so I wore it without anyone judging me. I could sleep in on a Sunday morning or stay up all night reading an old novel without worrying about being disturbed. At home, I was truly myself, but in the nursing home, I slowly forgot what that felt like. Here, my room has a nameplate on the door, but it doesn't feel like it belongs to me. Nurses can come in at any time to check my blood pressure, take my temperature, or ask about my sleep last night, whether I'm resting or just wanting to be alone. The cleaning staff knocks but often enters immediately, sometimes before I've even pulled my shirt up properly. I don't blame them. They're just following procedures. But the feeling of being managed, every breath, every movement, makes me feel less like a person and more like a case, a patient, an object of care. I used to bathe myself, dress myself. I knew exactly which clothes I liked, which fabrics I disliked. I had my own taste, my own habits, just like any other man. But now whenever I want to take a shower, I have to wait for my scheduled time. I need assistance. Even for something as personal as washing my back, drying myself, putting on clothes. One time when I had a slight fever, a young nurse helped me change my shirt. She was gentle, professional, but I just stood there, stiff, my face burning, like a young man standing before a woman for the first time. Not because I was ashamed of my body, but because I no longer felt like myself. I used to be an independent man, neat, capable, self-sufficient. Now I feel helpless, living off the help of others. And the painful part is, I have no other choice. You know, when an elderly person loses control over the most basic aspects of life, like showering when they want, wearing what they like, or simply closing a door for some solitude, it's not just a loss of privacy. It's when you start losing your dignity. I don't want to live confined within safe yet unfamiliar walls, where I must ask permission for things I once did naturally my entire life. I don't want to become just another task in a nurse's shift. I just want, if only a little, to be myself again, to live with the small habits I once took for granted. Regret 6, hard to leave when you want to. When I first stepped into the nursing home, I told myself, it's just for a while. If it doesn't suit me, I can always go back home. That thought reassured me. It made me feel like I was still in control. I believed I was just here to try slowing down, to rest for a bit, and then I would return to my familiar home, where my wife's photo hung on the wall and my old armchair waited for me to read the morning paper. But I never expected going back wouldn't be as easy as I thought. Just a few months after I moved in, my old home had already changed. My son started clearing out some of my belongings. He said, to make it more spacious and tidy. The wooden furniture I had built with my own hands was gone. The neighbors no longer checked in on me like they used to. The old friends I used to play chess with at the park stopped mentioning me. Perhaps they thought I had moved away for good. One day I told my son, I want to go home. He paused, looked at me and asked, are you sure? Here, you have people to take care of you. Nurses watching over you. If something happens at home, who will be there? I stayed silent. I knew he was worried about me. And the most painful part was, I had started to believe it too. Maybe I really wasn't capable of living on my own anymore. I had gotten used to meals being brought to me, my room being cleaned, my medication being reminded. I had grown accustomed to not worrying about anything. And because of that, I had forgotten how to take care of myself. I once thought this place was temporary, but now it had become the final destination. I looked around. There was Mr. Walter, who had originally come here just for recovery after a minor accident. He said he would leave once he got better, but a year had passed and he was still here. Another resident had planned to stay only for a few months, but then his children sold his old house, and suddenly he had nowhere to return to. That's when I realized a truth that no one told me before I came here. Entering a nursing home is easy, but if you're not prepared, leaving is nearly impossible. Because while you're trying out life here, the world outside is moving on. Your home is no longer the same. Your neighbors no longer remember you. And you, after living long enough in dependence, lose the ability to return to your old life. If I could do it again, I wouldn't have rushed into this place just because I wanted to rest. I would have asked my son to hire a part-time caregiver instead. I would have arranged a more flexible care plan, one that allowed me to stay in my own home. I would have fought to keep my independence for one more year, one more month. Because once you walk through the gates of a nursing home, you may never walk out as yourself again. Entering a nursing home is not just a change of residence. It is a major turning point in life. From declining health and loss of privacy to the feeling of being forgotten, these are things no one talks about in advance, yet they are the reality many face. These stories are not meant to evoke regret, but to help us prepare better for the future. If you are interested in the hidden aspects of aging and want to understand the realities of life in a nursing home, subscribe to the channel now. Don't wait until you step through that door to realize you weren't ready.